So that was unfortunate. In the last, couple months or quarter of a year, we lost 2 cows. We have three now with us. But she served here for a long time, and we buried her here also, as we have some other cows that have passed away over the years. So some of you are familiar with Danu and had a firsthand experience of her. So that's she's moving on to a better place.
Do you plan on getting any more cows?
No, we don't want to get any. We stopped the dairy, so.
So it's just kind of taking care of the cows you have, and
Yeah, and it's much easier to do, and they've got a good, quite a good situation. So,
nice.
It's just nice to have them here. But other than that,
Your book
going on. I mean, then Lita Saki's hands. She's doing the proofreading. She's done more than half now. So I think it'll be done. Well, her work will be done this month, and then maybe in September we'll have to begin designing it. So it's quite
before the end of the year.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to hold you to that.
I think so. I hope so. Yeah.
I hope so too. Really do. Okay. Well, we have our first question by one of the new initiatives, one of the new initiated devotees, Krishna Kanai.
Okay. Good morning.
Hare Krishna, good morning, Guru Maharaj Pranam. So I was wondering, one of my friend, she's organizing an interreligious youth camp, and she asked me to give a workshop on Hinduism. So it's going to be kids from Palestine, from Israel, and from Austria. They're going to be like 16 to 20 years old, and the workshop is like 1 to 2 hours. So, and specifically, they were asking me, which I find awesome, to teach them mantras. So I was just wondering which 1 or 2 mantras would you think are suitable? And also, what are really important things that I should not forget? I mean, I have like my ideas, but I just wanted to use this opportunity to ask for, better guidance. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's nice that you have that opportunity. I would, with regard to mantras, I would only share with them non-mantras like the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra or Govinda Jai Jai, Gopal Jai Jai would be good also, but not Gayatri mantras, Diksha mantras that are to be chanted with certain restrictions and so on and so forth, as opposed to non-mantras, which are can be widely distributed and so forth. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna, Yadavaya Namaha, Govinda Jaya Jaya, Hare Krishna, like those types of mantras, if you will. And then otherwise, I would I guess I would stress that the Hindu religion, which is the dominant religion of the East, out of which Buddhism has arisen. Buddha was originally a Hindu, tends to be inclusive in its nature, whereas the Abrahamic religions tend to stress exclusivity. And that's a big difference between East and West. Excuse me, I would also stress that there are important universal concepts within Hinduism that are applicable to other religious traditions cross-culturally: karma, gyan, bhakti. So karma means that orientation to a religious tradition in which the practitioner is primarily concerned with acquisition, praying to God for things. And then Gyan, as it is described in Hinduism, refers to an orientation to a whatever particular religious tradition of one's choice, an orientation that is in pursuit of mystical experience and personal sainthood. So, so you have, for example, in Islam, you obviously have, or Christianity, to use two examples. Even in Buddhism, you have prayers for give me this, give me that, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, and so forth. So that's a karmic orientation. The Islamists want, to get 99 women or whatever it is in heaven, or I don't know what what their goal is. And Christians have their goals for acquisition and so forth. And then in these traditions, let's say Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, you have mystics also. You have Sufis within Islam. You have your tradition of saints in Catholicism, who are not in pursuit, by contrast, of worldly acquisition, but are in pursuit of experience of the elusive soul, if you will, the self. So that's karma, that's Gyan, and these are, and then you have Bhakti. And Bhakti is I would say, a mystical orientation that, rather than simply in pursuit of the experience of the self, is in pursuit of experience of the self in relation to God in loving rapport. So you have karma, which is ignorance, acquisition of material things. You have Gyan, which is knowledge that, well, there's something in the world that's better. There's something in life. There's more to life than things. And it's us. And then you have the Bhakti orientation. Not only is it us, but our source as well, with whom we can have loving rapport and movement, if you will, celebratory movement and transcendence. Now, I'd be careful in speaking about karma as ignorance. That orientation is, I would frame it as being not focused on the heart of what the tradition is about. Someone needs to mute themselves. They're making a lot of noise in the back. It might be, I don't know. Anyway, so and then I would emphasize that the karmic orientation to religion is not bad, but when it's seen as the goal, then it becomes a problem. And then you have these feuds between religious traditions, fighting over symbols and what clothes to wear, what prayers to sing, and so on and so forth. And you don't have that kind of religious friction between the mystics, per se, comparatively. So I would emphasize that. That would be my approach to it. I mean, you can factor that into what you've already thought about and see if it works for your presentation. Let us know how it goes.
Yes, thank you. May I have a follow-up question?
Yeah.
So I've been in these like interfaith settings before, and I've really people express their like offensiveness over, God having a form, and so. I mean, for me, I don't have to like defend Krishna, but how do you deal with that if people are, kind of like, what do you know?
The Islamic tradition in particular tends to be against the form of God. in the Jewish tradition, the name of God is thought to be so holy that it can't be chanted. And what I would say, so it's a similar idea. I don't think that what we are against, along with Islam, is making up in your own mind a form of God. That would be idolatry. It's your own idea, so to speak. But we have information through our scriptures about transcendental form of God. So we agree that God has no material form, and to give God a material form, we don't agree with that. But there's such a thing as spiritual form. We think of form as a limitation, and therefore we say that God doesn't have the form. But form can also be facilitating. So I've given an example many times. If you take a glass of water, well, the glass is a form, and it certainly facilitates drinking the water. It doesn't get in the way. So there's ways in which form can facilitate. Let's take art, for example, music. These are feelings, really. But when they take a shape, then they can be appreciated and so forth. So does love have a shape? Does love have a form through which it expresses itself? That would be the idea. Love taking shape, something like that. It's nothing material. So we could say we agree with the idea that God doesn't have a material form, but that there can be spiritual forms. It's another thing. Just like if you take, for example, the self, consciousness, and you invest it in material ingredients in a particular way, wood, fire, stone, air, earth, you get a house. That's a form. So consciousness invested in material raw ingredients can give a shape. So if consciousness is invested in itself, in pursuit of its source, could there not be consciousness constituted shapes and forms that facilitate love, the expression of love? That's the way I would try to talk about it.
Thank you. That was wonderful. I'll let you know how it goes. It's still like 4 more weeks to go, and so I can prepare. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's important to let your audience know that the objective of such gatherings or and whatnot is to try to enter into the mind and the thinking and the feeling of the other tradition and look at it from their point of view instead of remaining stuck on your side over here with your arguments only, and see if those arguments that you make can be better understood even for what they're really talking about by entering into another tradition. Because after all, if you have saints in each tradition, then how can you, you can't argue too much with the tradition if it can produce the result, right? You could say Hinduism is wrong because I'm a Christian and I don't believe in Jesus, but if you find people who are saints in Hinduism, well, you have to rethink your understanding, right? What Christianity is really saying when it seems to speak of exclusivity. Anyway, good luck with that. Okay.
Okay. Gayatri?
Hare Krishna, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I have a question that goes kind of along the same lines as Krishna and I. So I have fairly recently been made aware that my father thinks that I am in a sect, and not
You are what?
My father thinks that I am in a sect. And not the good kind. And I'm just curious, how would you present Krishna consciousness to someone that does not believe in God?
Well, You kind of brought up two things there. It's one thing not to believe in God. I guess maybe your father doesn't. It's another thing to say that you're in a sect that's bad, which would mean that there were good sects. So I would present, first of all, that to my father that I'm a member of Hinduism. It's one of the largest world religions, and it's been around for a very, very long time. There are different sects within Hinduism because of its inclusive nature, but Hinduism is a pretty big tradition, and there are whole countries that are Hindus, practically speaking. So I would try to allay his fears of his daughter is in some kind of harmful sect by giving it the broader context. That's one thing. We're Hindus. Secondly, you ask about how to talk to an atheist about God. I would begin by saying that that we define consciousness to be non-material. Immaterial would maybe be a more scientific term, immaterial. And that we by nature are not chemical or biological, but spiritual, and that means that we are consciousness constituted. And this is an idea that is also held by a good number of people in the scientific community who are trying to understand the nature of reality. And therein, a very pressing question is, what is the nature of consciousness? Is consciousness an epiphenomenon of the brain, or the reverse of that is just, if not more reasonable, is the world out there an epiphenomenon of consciousness? We look at it the other way around, and we're not alone in that. You can suggest to him a book by Donald Hoffman. I forget the name of the book, but his recent book, scientist and teacher, University of California, well known. But look at his most recent book, and there you get basically a scientifically credible position on the nature of consciousness that agrees with Hinduism. So better to approach like that and dismiss, as he probably does, these fairy tale type ideas about God. We're not part of that, some man on a cloud, or anything like that. Old man on a cloud, somebody with no face, or whatever. But it's not a question of whether people say, do you believe in a soul? Well, we say, do you believe in consciousness? Which makes the question kind of stupid. Of course, you have to believe in consciousness. Without consciousness is the basis of any belief. You can't believe without consciousness. We say that consciousness is, we say that the material world, the objective world, is only whatever it is. All we know about it is a conscious perception, subjective perception of it. So consciousness is primary, and the external objective world is secondary. We reverse things, that's all. We think that the subjective realm is primary, not the objective realm. Modern world is trying to say the objective world is primary, subjective world is second. We don't live like that. We live like the subjective world is primary. Emotions are primary, our feelings are primary. To try to dismiss all that and say that what reality really is feelingless, meaningless, purposeless. We don't find that very compelling. Now, good luck. I mean, I could explain it pretty well, but you have to practice at that. But that's where I would take the argument in that direction.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. Good to see you.
Krishna, can I put the name of the book in the chat so you can
She
see
put the book
that?
there.
The
What's the
Case
name?
Against Reality, Why Evolution Hid the Truth from Our Eyes by Donald Hoffman.
Yeah. And there's a book, he accepts evolution, but of course he looks at it from, a whole different perspective. And that's very useful. So I think your father would be impressed if he read that book and thought, this is what my daughter thinks along these lines.
Nice.
Okay.
Sorry.
What else?
Hari John?
Hari John Das.
Hari John.
Radha and Krsna, Maharaj. I want to ask if you could explain concepts like svanistha, parinistha, and nirapeksa.
Yes, these are three terms coined by Baladev Vijayabhusana. Baladev Vijayabhusana is a later acharya in Gaudiya Vaishnavism who gave new life to Gaudiya Vaishnavism in his time by his scholarship and in particular by his commentary on Vedanta Sutra. It's very significant, his contribution in this regard, because to be known in the world today as Gaudiya Vaishnavism is, as one of the schools of Vedanta, if you will, is very prestigious. There are many strands of Hinduism, many yogis and gurus, whatnot and so forth, but they're not necessarily connected to a school of Vedanta. And to be so connected and to be acknowledged as such is very prestigious. Now, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't feel there was a need for a commentary on the Bhagavatam, on the Vedanta Sutra, because he said the Bhagavatam is a commentary, and he quoted the Gaura Purana in this regard. That's well enough and good and well enough, but what Baladev did in his time with that commentary and his other extensive literary contribution was significant in terms of elevating the status of Gaudiya Vaishnavism within the Hindu community. So, Baladev Vijayabhusana, he coined these terms, svanistha, parinistha, and nirapeksa. And svanistha, these are three types of devotees. Svanistha is a devotee that has aspirations, if you will, short of the goal. The goal is also his or her aspiration, but other aspirations that the svanistha tries to attain in the context of bhakti. So it's kind of a sakama devotee with desire. Might, for example, want to practice bhakti with the interest and the curiosity of going to Brahmaloka, going to the heavens, checking it out along the way, and so forth. This is, I wouldn't put Gopakumar Brihad Bhagavatamrita in that section. That's a different situation. But the svanistha is such. Now the parinistha is typically a grihastha, also like the svanistha, and by grihastha means, well, has some worldly orientation, family, needs a livelihood, so on and so forth, but a Vaishnava nonetheless. But the parinistha is one who is involved in varnashram dharma, for example, only for the purpose of setting example for other people within a varnashram type of social system, but not with the idea that my bhakti will be enhanced by performing varnashram, or that my bhakti will be damaged by not performing varnashram. He or she doesn't think that. He or she knows that bhakti is a path unto itself that transcends varnashram. But in a varnashram society, the parinishta devotee does the rituals, does the, what Hindus do, and so on and so forth, without attachment. That's the parinishta. The nirapeksa is then the renunciate, who's given up the world altogether and is living the life of a contemplative, or it could be the life of a preacher, but is a renunciate. So the renunciate has no rules that he or she has to follow. Of course, they do follow certain rules and so forth, but they don't have to. So does that help? It's a basic idea.
Yes. So does that correlate with like Madhya, Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttama, or it's a little bit different?
Not really. No, it's a different idea, as I've explained it, and there are those. Certainly. The svanistha would be kanishta in his orientation, for the most part. That's a given. But I suppose you could make a rough, comparison. But one could be a parinishta and be an uttam bhakta at the same time. So grihetako, banetako, sadahadi volidako. So it really doesn't, whether one is officially a renunciate or one is officially a grihastha, if internally they have foregone material pursuit and only are engaged in the pursuit of bhakti, then they are equal. Does that help?
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
So Sajan, you want to ask your question?
Yes, thank you, Didi. Dandavats Maharaj. This is a two-part question based on my readings of the Chaitanya Bhagavat. In the Madhya Kanda, there's one incident where Mahaprabhu is at the home of Srivas Thakur, engaged in kirtan, and he suddenly says, I'm not feeling any ecstasy. I must not have any love for Krishna. And he runs out of the house and he jumps into the Ganga to drown himself. And so Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur, they leap into the Ganga right after him and rescue him. They pull him out. So the first part of the question is, so with the understanding that the Supreme Lord is Triguna Rahitam, beyond the influence of all of the components of nature. That's understood. But there's an appearance, appearance of being very impulsive, impassioned, etc., rajasic, apparently. So the first part of the question is, this is of course when Mahaprabhu was actually Krishna and Radha together in this incarnation. But of course we have heard that in all the other incarnations it is Gaura Narayan or Vishnu who comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So is it written anywhere in the writings of the Goswamis or anyone else's writings that when Mahaprabhu comes as Gaura Narayan, is his behavior more of an appearance of sattvic rather than rajasic, appearance-wise?
Yeah. Well, first of all, as you know, there are spiritual emotions that may appear to be material. Therefore, it said, Vaishnavera Kriya Mudra Bignena Bhuchai. It's very difficult to understand a Vaishnav who may be acting in ways that ordinary people do, even while their heart and the motivation of their action is entirely different. Certainly that's the case with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and there are any number of examples. He took sannyas because the Brahmin students didn't understand his ecstasy when he chanted Gopi, 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 and criticized them for telling him to chant Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. So some commentary is required that we may understand something about transcendental emotions. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I said that the kirtan was the method to his madness, and he was quite mad. And those things about him and those incidences in which his madness comes to the surface and so forth, this characterizes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. These are not things that happened here, an incident here, there, another incident, but overall, it's actually characterizes Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If you were to take away those moments, there would be nothing left. Therefore, he was the very, and if indeed, this is why the Goswamis labored to locate him on the map of the scripture. What is this about? It's obviously spiritual. What is it about? And they came to the conclusion, this is Mahabhav. Mahabhav. So yes. He is Mahabhav Rasaraj Dui Ekarup. He is the yes. Mahabhav of Radha, corresponding with the Rasaraj Krishna, the two in one form. And so it's to be expected. This is characteristic of him, this madness, this is Mahabhav. This is not just Bhav, but this is Mahabhav. And it is the that which Radha is the personification. So the fullest expression of ecstatic love of God. This is Radha, in taking form, right? The form of that, and here Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is. So it's this characteristic of him. This differentiates him. This is from other avatars, from other saints, and so on and so forth. It's not just something that happened, here and there. There's 6 or 2 or 8 different times, but this is his whole Leela. And of course, there are times when it becomes more intense and less intense, but we find it early on in the Adi Lila, and then in Madhya Lila, he's teaching about it. And the Anti Lila, of course, he's gone, he's lost. That's it. He's forever in that internal consciousness, oblivious to the external world. So the very embodiment of ecstasy. So it's a very significant thing. We did it years ago. You may remember we were doing Clarion Call magazine. We did it at one.
Oh, yes.
The issues were each thematic. So we did one on ecstasy, and we had a picture of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Rath Yatra. It was our most popular issue. I didn't know at the time that there was a drug called ecstasy that was popular, but it's a popular topic, right? Ecstasy. Everyone's living for that those transcendental moments, right? Where we go.
Yes.
So he's the embodiment of that. This is a very objective statement that if you look cross-culturally at different saints and religious traditions and avatars and whatnot, whatever one might call them in their particular tradition, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was characterized by this. There's no one who is more the embodiment of ecstasy than, and it overflowed and touched other people as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I mean, the descriptions are consistent throughout every biography, every account of him, right? So he's characterized by this, and it's a good thing. And it's an identifier. This is how he can be. This is how he can be identified as what aspect of divinity is this? It's the Mahabhava of Radha. The highest expression of transcendental love. Wow. And it corresponds with Krishna, Rasraj. So, no, then, the second part of your question, you wouldn't find that in other avatar, Vaikuntha avatar, or Narayana avatar. You wouldn't find that. Therefore, it's said that the Yuga Dharma of Nam Sankirtan, which would be what the Gaura avatar distributed, has a certain efficacy that is different than the Maha Mantra when it's distributed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who took the Yuga Dharma and wove it together in a garland with prem. Gave it to Nityananda Prabhu, and he gave it to the whole world. He garlanded the world with this. So through the Sankirtan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is the Yuga Dharma, but coming from Swami Bhagavan, Radha Bhav, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the result is prem. One can enter into Goloka, not just mukti in Vaikuntha. So then, therefore, Krishna Prema Pradayate, this is what he did. He gave out Krishna Prema. Mahabodhanaya, most magnanimous. His quality is that he's most magnanimous. His lila is Krishna Prema Pradayate. Mahabodhanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate. Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya. His name is Krishna Chaitanya. Namne Gaura Prasadam. And his form is golden. This is a nice verse. The qualities, the lila, the name and the rupa and the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all in one verse, glorified, attributed to Rupa Goswami. Okay, does that help?
Oh yes, Maharaj, very much. And based on what you just so beautifully shared, it occurs to me that it seems more clear now than ever before that without some direct guidance from a teacher coming from one of the lineages or branches directly from Mahaprabhu, it's not really possible to follow the verse in Bhagavad Gita, Yad Yad Acharati Shreshtas, because one could easily misunderstand what to follow the example of that Mahaprabhu did and what not to follow like that. Because
no, there are some things we can't follow.
That's right, exactly so. Yes.
You
Yes.
can't follow because it wouldn't be good for you. You can't follow because it's not possible to do.
Exactly. Sure, of course.
That's true, what you say, and it's that's the point that we emphasize. At the same time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tried to set a good example. But we have to look at Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and understand he's Krishna. And you could say to Krishna, now wait a minute, Krishna. You said that
Yes.
whatever a great person does, others should follow.
Yes.
Therefore, you said in the Gita, you follow the scriptures so that people will understand how to follow. Otherwise, everything will be lost. But what's with this? These late night rendezvous are so central to your childhood. Should we dismiss your childhood and say, well, that was just childhood, and now you're an adult speaking the Bhagavad Gita here? So Krishna himself is questionable in this regard. So maybe some questions surrounding Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's behavior, even though Grihijana Shikshakan Yasikulu Nayaka, not even those things. He was an ideal example of a grihasta. Yes, he was mad, that's true. But he maintained his family, and he wasn't womanizing with other women and so forth. And he was, in many respects, an ideal grihasta. So he set that example. And he was an ideal sannyasin also.
Yes.
The other sannyasis were startled by that. So he did set a good example, but at times his inner ecstasy taking over caused him to do things that are difficult to understand and impossible to imitate.
Right.
Srimad Mahaprabhu, Jai.
Jai. Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Hey, Sumati.
Excuse me.
Can you hear me, Guru Maharaj?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's see what you did.
My question is about when Maha-Vishnu stole all the Brahmins' children, and I think it was after the 8th or 9th one, and Arjuna had promised the Brahmin that, that he would save the next one and make sure that, the children were dying. And they didn't know that Mahavishnu was stealing them at that time. But so the last one died, and Arjuna was going to take his own life because he wasn't able to keep the child from dying. So Krishna stopped him, and they went to see Mahavishnu. And Mahavishnu said, I have brought the two of you here because I wanted to see you, who are my expansions, who have descended to earth to save religious principles. So how is it that Mahavishnu would call Krishna his expansion when it's the opposite?
I don't think the children died, they disappeared mystically, but they were all found into the Vaikuntha loka within the Jagat. There's a particular place of Vishnu within the material world. But at any rate, I'd have to look at the text itself, but the comprehensive answer to your question is in the Krishna Sandarbha, where this incident is underscored to further demonstrate, which is what Krishna Sandarbha is all about, that Krishna is the source of all avatars, that Mahavishnu wanted to see Krishna and have his darshan.
Right.
Therefore, he must be special. Now, why would he use that language, is your question, if that's the case? Well, as I've said before, I think the way to answer that, short of going into all the details of Krishna Sandarbha, which I don't have at the tip of my tongue, but the way to answer that is that Krishna comes to the world. He's the avatari, the source of avatars. He comes to the world as an avatar, and he comes the way the other avatars come. So let's take Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, right? He's the avatari. But how did he come to the world? He came through
Jagannath.
Well, he came through Maha-Vishnu in the form of Advaita, who drew him to the world for the work of the Yuga avatar, right? So, Advaita caused his avatar, the avatari's avatar, descent into the world. So I gave the example before that Prabhupada was asked by a reporter in the United States, if you're so mystical, why didn't you come here on a flying carpet instead of on an airplane? And Prabhupada said, well, it's your country, I came on your terms, I came on your terms. I want to be, get close to you and so forth. I want to create a distance. So, so this is the conventional way. The avatari comes through the avatar, but that's only superficial, that he took that method to come. But the fact that Maha-Vishnu did all that to see him, to have his darshan, and,
right.
And so forth, tells us there's more to the story, right? And the more of the story is that he's the avatari, he's the source, even of Maha-Vishnu. And that he's in the world doing extraordinary things was extraordinary enough for Mahavishnu to find to come up with a scheme, right, by which he would get the darshan of Krishna and Arjuna together.
Nice. Thank you.
So Gayatri has another question.
Okay.
Sorry. Yes, so I was wondering, I read something
I can see you're talking, but I can't hear you.
I can hear her.
Should I press the English channel instead?
Yeah,
Okay.
press the English channel.
Can you hear me now, Guru Maharaj?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. I was wondering, I read in the Srimad Bhagavatam that, well, it's the first chapter in the first canto. It's verse 21. It says that knowing well that the age of Kali has already begun, we are assembled here in this holy place to hear at great length the transcendental message of Godhead, and in this way perform sacrifice. And then in the purport, it is described how people in the age of Kali only lived to be 100. So how is it then that these sages can sit down to hear the pastimes of the Lord over a period of 1,000 years if they are in the age of Kali?
Does the verse say 1,000 years?
Yeah, yes, it does say in the purport that they sit down over a period of 1,000 years.
What does the verse say again?
It says, knowing well that the age of Kali has already begun, we are assembled here in this holy place to hear at great length the transcendental message of Godhead, and in this way perform sacrifice.
And Prabhupada says what?
And then Prabhupada says, it says that, so I don't, well, I can get the verse up. I only wrote it down and I reacted to it saying that they sit down over a period of 1,000 years. But I can.
Yeah, well, it would be good to see the context to answer your question. Yeah. But if one way to think about that, of course, is the sacrifice. If it's said to be, a number of years that extends beyond the life of those who have started it, it doesn't mean that it won't continue by their successors in an ongoing way. So if we sit to perform a 1,000-year sacrifice, we may only live 100 years, but we have our successors who will carry it on and so forth, would be one way of thinking about that. Does that help?
Yeah, I think I found exactly what it says in the purport, and it says that the sages of Naimisaranya began this process in a place meant specifically for the devotees of the Lord. They prepared themselves to hear the pastimes of the Lord over a period of 1,000 years.
Over more than 1,000 years.
Over a period of 1,000 years.
Yeah. So I think that's the way to think about it, through their successors. Now, it could be that they sat down to perform a 1,000-year sacrifice, and then they did the sacrifice, and they only got smoke from the fire, and they realized it's Kali-yuga. And so they sat for a 1,000-year sacrifice. They suddenly realized it's Kali-yuga, and they're not going to be for 1,000 years. So now turn their sacrifice into just hearing and chanting about the Lord, which is appropriate for Kali-yuga, something to that effect. That's the way of thinking about it. It's a little maybe different from what Prabhupada said, but that's also a possibility. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, well, we're just about out of time. Is there another short question or no?
We can ask anybody. Oh, yeah, Sharda said a follow-up to something within the last question. Did Maha-Vishnu, coming from Krishna, have some kind of ecstasy of separation from Krishna? Pranams from Sharda.
It said, Ekala Ishwar Krishna Ar Sabritya. Ekala Ishwar Krishna Ar Sabritya. So, Ekala Ishwar. Only Krishna is the Ishwar, the God, the controller. Ekala Ishwar Krishna Ar Sabritya. And everybody else is Britya, servant. So this is a statement that's made, I believe, maybe in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the idea being that even the different avatars are all servants, ultimately, of Krishna as well. So in service to Krishna, there is union and separation. So in a broad sense, we could say something like that, but it's not typical that Maha-Vishnu will be pining for union with Krishna in Vaikuntha. He is Krishna, who has his own Leela in Vaikuntha and his own devotees and so on and so forth. But there may be instances in which, for example, the Prakat Leela, Krishna comes, it's special, then he has special feelings for his source, if you will, and seeks an opportunity to have his darshan to serve him, something to that effect. But it's not typical. Again, this is Krishna is manifests in different ways, and those leelas, those forms, Mathura and Dwarka, Vaikuntha, and so on and so forth, they all have their own purpose, and he's fully absorbed therein in that purpose. Although, from time to time, there may be instances that arise. For example, in Vaikuntha, Gopakumar and Bhagavatamrita came there. And so then special feelings arose in Maha-Vishnu for Krishna, and he showed the Krishna Leela to a Vaikuntha version of that to Gopakumar. But it's typically we would not characterize Krishna's different avatars as feeling separation from him in the way that devotees feel love and union and separation. Although they are servants of Krishna ultimately, in one sense, they are more objects of bhakti 4 other types of servants. Servants in Vaikuntha have Narayan as their object of worship. So he's playing the role as the object of worship rather than as the worshiper. And in the case of the worshiper, then feelings of separation can come. So there's maybe some instance like that we hear in the Bhagavatam, but a more in an overriding sense, Maha-Vishnu and other avatars are characterized as being objects of love. They are, when it's said in the Bhagavad, in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, when Rupa Goswami defines Bhakti, he says, Anya Abhilashi Tasunyam Gyan Karmali Nabritam Anukulena Krishnanushila. So Krishnanushila means Krishna, the culture. Bhakti is not covered by Gyan and karma, and it is the ongoing culture of devotion to Krishna. And here Krishna means as well as other avatars. So again, in those forms, he is the object of love more than he is in the role of a lover who would feel separation. So that's a nice question, and I hope the answer is helpful. And with that, we come to the end of the session today. So I hope to be with you next week.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so for a minute. We'll give a little announcements here. So Hare Krishna, good to see everybody, and congratulations to everyone who got initiated second, first. Really exciting to see our family grow. Harimo. And we have the programs for the classes have been simplified. I think it was a little bit getting too much for everybody, including the devotees giving the classes. So now there will be classes in August every Wednesday at 11:30, and it'll just be a different speaker every week. So on August 3rd, Brigupad will be giving class, and then on the 17th, Madame Mohan will be giving class. On the 24th, Sadhvi will be giving class, and on the 31st, Shama Sundar will be giving class. And then we have one special class so far in August. I don't know if there'll be something on Janmashtami, but right now, Baladev Purnim, Guru Maharaj will be giving class at 11:30. So that's on August 11th. So that's something we all should look forward to. And then the Sunday calls is, check in every week just to make sure, but he plans on giving class every Sunday unless something comes up that would prevent him. Yes.
I will be in Gainesville for Janmashtami, so I would love to see you then.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Yes, and anybody else that's going to be in the area will get together. That would be lovely. Yeah, you have my contact information, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that would be great. Well, that's exciting. All right. Well, good to see everybody, and have a wonderful week. And we'll see everybody back here next Sunday. Hare Krishna.